All right, man. We got a great guest tonight in the live room at World Music Nashville podcast 2020. My good friend and one of my favorite people that comes in the store, Vinnie Smith of V-Pix, brother.
Boy, that's a big big name to try to match up with.
And Will and Dax are here, of course.
Absolutely.
And we're going to talk to Vinnie about V-Pix.
Right on.
One of our favorite products to sell. I have to tell you this, Vinnie. Like when I first started here, and Dax agrees with me, the thing I hated to sell more than anything was picks.
Absolutely.
Why?
Well,
They were under the counter.
yeah, we didn't have them in a good. They weren't in a good place.
Yeah, I know that.
And you have to feel. It's something people have to feel. Everybody that buys the picks,
it's a tactile experience.
Absolutely, it's a physical, tactile thing, and
Worse than selling single strings to
yes, it was very. It was weird. It was just, I don't know. It was time consuming. You'd have to get all the trays out and put them on the counter, and then it's worked so much better.
people. Half the time the tray would fall.
Yeah,
there'd
it
be
was a
picks
mess.
all over the floor.
We didn't have enough room. Now we've got that whole section that's a pick section now, and people can actually. Oh, okay, I get it. And I tell you, since we've done that, we have sold so many more picks, and your picks especially.
Well, I agree with that. When I set up a dealer, I always tell them, if you will put these by your cash register, people are going to buy them because they're going to pick them up. They're going to say, "What's this?"
Mm-hmm.
When they're out of sight, they're out of mind. And I actually just tell my dealers, if you're down a few SKUs because you think somebody's lifted a couple, just tell me.
Yeah.
Shoot, I give 100 SKUs a day away anyway. So,
Right.
and you're right. If they're up there, they can look at them, feel them.
Yeah. But now, I mean, that was my own. Like I had never worked in a music store before. Worked here, and that was the one thing I just dreaded when people come in. And it's something we
funny.
sell every day.
That's funny.
It's like, oh, another pick customer. Like I think we talked about that on the first podcast that. It was just all people that worked here. We're like, what is your worst thing to sell?
Another big customer.
Yeah. And me and Dax both always said, man, the picks. And that was our fault. We just didn't have them in a good place. So
Yeah, they did keep them down in the counter.
Down in the counter.
You could see them, but you might not want to go, "Hey, man, can I check these out?"
Yeah. It was
Or if somebody who didn't happen to be there,
Right.
then you're going to walk by and you're going to forget about them. Yeah.
It was
Well, that explains why you guys sell so many more now.
we sell a lot more now, and it's easier for us. And I think the customers like it a lot better. And it all works out great.
Absolutely.
Do you like selling picks, Will?
I don't mind selling picks. I think selling picks is kind of like, I was never with y'all when you were selling picks the way you're talking about. But even like when you have the display cases out, and when people know what they want, that's great. And I love selling V-picks and the special kind of picks where you can kind of talk about them and explain this is what's special about
That's
this.
where I was going when I opened the conversation. Was it's taught me so much more about playing, talking to you and talking to people about their picks. And like we have a lot of customers, the same people come in, return customers, and buy the same picks, and they talk about why they use this pick. And I never considered that before I started working here.
I just thought of something too, when you were talking about getting the display case out and you're standing there, the customer's probably feeling a little hurried,
Sure.
and they might not take the time to really pay attention to what's in that case because they're kind of looking things over real quick because they don't want to take up your time. They don't want to be rude about it.
Absolutely.
But when it's over there and they can just stand there and look at them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just never had considered picks. I mean, I'd always used the same kind of pick, and until I came here, and I just got into this whole pick world. And
I used a green Tortex 88 for about 30 years, 25 years. Would have never dreamt of the big 1980. It would have seemed preposterous. I didn't know anything really about different picks until the V-picks.
Right. I didn't either until
Absolutely.
I talked to Vinnie.
Really?
Yeah, me too. I can definitely say that.
That's just so funny.
I
because-
wouldn't even know why you would have made one. I wouldn't have thought to make one so big. It would have just seemed ridiculous. And now I can't play with a normal pick.
No, I can't either.
That's fun. That's funny to me because I questioned it from the start. I guess they just didn't feel right to me.
Your picks didn't ever feel right
They
to you?
never
Just
felt
the
right
little
to me,
ones.
and they didn't sound right to me. And all I knew was when I would hold a pick, especially a flimsy one, if I would play with this shoulder up here, and if I was always I always used to play upstrokes. Everything was an upstroke. This is the way I used to play, just like this. And I got tired of that, and I found that if I would pick up a seashell or a piece of wood, I found that the sound was fatter, and I got that same tone that I was playing when I was playing everything with an upstroke. And really what I was doing, if you think about playing everything with an upstroke, is I was playing Albert King. Because if you think about it, he played everything with the downstroke, but the guitar was upside down. And so playing with the downstroke for him was really playing upstroke for us, in direction with the string. And I guess that's what I was doing, was sound like Albert King. But I questioned it from the start. And so in 1980, when I designed that, I was playing with this real popular band in California. And I would make these picks during the day. I worked in a garage, and there was grinders there and everything. And I would make these picks during the day. And I just come up with silly little ideas, but I love this stuff called cast acrylic. I didn't know it was called cast acrylic then. It was called plexiglass. That's all I knew, was he called it plexiglass. And aquariums were made out of it. The first time I saw it, because I was really into saltwater aquariums, like really into them. And they had the plexiglass had the rounded corners. So the first time I saw a sheet of plexiglass, I was just infatuated with it, and I grabbed it, went home, cut out some picks, and they were pretty much this shape right here. They were about that big, and they were. I don't know why I ended up with that shape, but I did.
Did you just eyeball it?
Yeah, I drew it out on a piece of paper. I still have the little piece of paper that I drew it
sheet.
out. I do, and I drew it out on a piece, and then you know what a Dremel is, of course. I cut it out with a Dremel.
Sure, yeah.
It's a wonder I didn't lop a finger off.
Right.
I cut it out with a Dremel, and then I went down to the line on the grinder, and I ground them. There was a kid named Jocko, and he used to clean the shop, and he was going to high school at the time. And he'd go, "You want me to buff those edges for you?" And I didn't even know, because I didn't spend much time in high school. I pretty much just fell out of high school. And he says, "You want me to buff those edges for you and make them smooth again?" So I said, "Well, I kind of like the way it sounds right now, but yeah, let's give it a try." So some of them were buffed and some of them weren't. But most of them I just played real raw, like that 1980 is, because it got this noise with every note.
Yeah.
And all I knew is I sounded like Brian May and Ed King from Leonard Skinner. Those are the two people that had that weird sound, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Is that why it's called the 1980?
Yeah, because I made it in 1980. That's exactly
cool.
how I made picks.
Did you know that?
And
I think he and I had talked about it before.
And then I found out later, of course, that Ed King had played Sweet Home Alabama with a seashell this thick. And again, I should have brought one, because he autographed one for me and gave it to me when he started playing my picks. And then Brian May plays with a coin, much like a dime. It's got a serrated edge on it, and it's called a sixpence. It's just it's about the size of a penny, but it's got the little serrated edges on it. So it gets that. So all I knew is when I played these things real scratchy like that, without polishing the edges, I sounded like those two guys. And it did. It came across the amp wonderfully.
Yeah.
And that's where it got started.
That's fantastic. That's so cool.
That is awesome.
I just
a great
did it
story.
And I didn't like a regular guitar pick, a flimsy, because man, I just couldn't play with them very good. I couldn't play fast. Everything had to be on an upstroke, or they just sounded terrible. I think I saw Santana too, and I think he was playing on an upstroke with everything back in those days too.
You know that he uses your picks, don't he?
Yeah. He doesn't use them all the time. He still uses his Dorito, which is shaped like this one, but it's a lot bigger. I've got one at the house. I took off his amp, and he still plays that, but he also plays the freakishly large round, of which I think you guys have some of those up there.
I think so.
Mandolin players really like those. But they got a rounded corner on them. They don't have a pointed corner. They
You
got
like
a rounded
a pointed corner?
I like the pointed corner.
You like the pointed one, yeah. Mandolin players kind of are in two schools of thought. One does like a real pointed pick, and I used to think it was the old timers that like the rounded, and the younger people that like the pointed. But I remember one time, one of my first NAMs, this old man came up to me, and I thought he was going to whoop my butt one day. He came up to me and he goes, "You the guy that gave me this pick yesterday?" It was called a large pointed, 2.75 millimeter, about that size right there, maybe a little smaller. He goes, "You're the guy that gave me this pick yesterday, right?" I go, "Whoa, yeah." He was about 75, looked like he was getting ready to grab my nose or something over the counter. And he goes, "I make my own picks out of hawkbill, but this right here, it's the..."
No.
That's what he said. He said, "This is the..."
You can say that.
Oh, this is the shit. And I laughed. And he bought a bunch of them from me then at NAM that day. He goes, "Man, I can't believe this." And he was the first mandolin player that I met.
Cheers. What pick was that again? That he was the
large pointed.
large pointed.
And I think that you have some up there on the Woodstock series, large pointed.
Right on.
He loved that. Now, Vince Gill, I gave Vince picks for years and years because he's a mandolin player, you know.
I believe it. I've never heard.
From way back. And one day he finally goes, "You know, Vinny, I only like rounded picks. You're always giving me these pointed ones. I like rounded picks." I said, "Well, Vince, you've never told me that, brother." So now he gets a handful of rounded picks.
Right on.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That's another thing that when I first discovered the V-Pick, like I just looked at all the people that are playing them, and they're all guys that I like really look up to. And I was like,
Absolutely.
yeah. Don't you think?
Definitely.
Like you know who really like? He's not my favorite guitar player. I just like it. Their stuff is the late Walter Becker.
Oh yeah, Walter was a wonderful person. I loved Walter.
He played
my picks, and
he did.
If you've ever seen his rig rundown on YouTube, have you guys watched that rig rundown?
I think I have. Seen
I don't think I've seen that one.
Watch it and don't fast forward. Watch the whole thing, but you'll see they go to this trap because they're getting ready to do a show, and there's the trap is sitting right next to him, trap case.
Yep.
And he's got about 25 V-picks laying all out on the top. He's got the Colossal. He's got the Insanity, the one that's the one that's a half an inch thick. He loved the thick picks. Walter did, and all the way down to.
You can hear that. I can hear that.
He loved them, and he used to. I'd ask, "Well, which one you use on Josie or this or that?" And his tech he's the one that I always would talk to as his tech. I never talked to Walter.
Really?
I wish I could have, but he was kind of to himself, I guess.
Sure.
Anyway, he would say, just right before the song, Walter would just look at that bunch of picks and just say, "I think I like the sound of this one on this song."
Wow.
He said that's what Walter would do. All night he was playing V-picks.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really neat.
And about twice a year, he would order about $1,500 worth of V-picks from me.
Wow.
I don't know if he gave them away or lost them. I lost a good customer when I lost. Well, not only did we lose a good guitar player, I lost a good customer.
Sure. So like going back to that origin story about you making the picks, was that all the research and development you did? I mean, it looks like you just do you get input from players.
I do.
And you just kind of like go off of that.
Sometimes our picks are designed because people have a request that I fulfill. Like the chicken picker. Mm-hmm. That pick I went to when I first started coming out to Nashville. No, I take that back. When I first moved to Nashville, and I was able to just spend a lot of time just walking around NAMM. And
sure.
I called these guys that were playing, I called them country shredders because they're playing a billion notes.
Like a Brent Mason type.
More than that. I'm talking players like that. And they're all using tiny picks. So I thought, I need to come up with a little pick that plays real fast like that. And then the chicken picker. I don't know what you guys think about this, but I'm going to say it anyway because I always do. I think that a lot of my ideas come from God because I'm not saying I got a special connection with him or nothing like that.
I believe you do.
But I get up in the morning sometimes with this idea in my head. It's just there. And I can't tell you where it comes from.
That's awesome.
So
That's like a song or something.
So you tell me where it comes from.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it comes from God myself.
Cheers, man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And
that's great.
Like this spirit. Now, this one was inspired by, we found a different, Nancy found a different supplier for material, and she found this purple stuff. She goes, "What do you think of that?" And I said, "Man, I think that's really cool." Well, I had a heart attack a couple of years ago, and I was in the hospital. And again, this pick popped in my mind, and I originally thought it was going to be a bass pick. I called it the EKG. You guys got them out there. They got the little EKG logo on it. That was originally designed for a bass because it's bigger, and it's the exact same shape as this. The sides are much straighter than a regular guitar pick, and this pick is very to the point when it comes to its sound. It knows what it wants to sound like. You can tell what this pick is going to sound like by looking. It's very intentional. There's no way you can play that pick and be not aggressive. That's a very intentional sound right there. And so I had already done the EKG, which turned out really funny because Nancy goes, "Nobody's going to want that pick." We laugh because she'll say, "Oh yeah, sold another EKG to this hour. Nobody's going to buy that pick."
Sure.
She says that, and she kind of mocks herself because she says that. But that's exactly the same shape as the EKG, just shrunken down. Because I didn't have a smaller version of that EKG. I think Billy Sheehan's got those EKGs too. He plays. He doesn't play pick very often, but when he does, it's a V pick.
Interesting.
Right on.
So
That's very cool.
But I don't know why, but I've always been able, if I want to get a certain sound that I'm hearing in my head, or if a customer tells me a certain sound that they want, I can tell you what shape is what bevel and what point's going to give you that sound. I can do that. I don't know why. I don't know why I can do that. I've always been able to do that.
So
It's just been there.
So
That's
if I was
amazing.
going for a comparatively, let's say I wanted to do a Metallica song and a Fleetwood Mac song, what picks would I need?
Well, the Fleetwood Mac song, you would definitely want a rounder pick, or no pick at all, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Lindsay doesn't play with a pig.
He does once in a while. When he plays that Strat, and when he gets those harmonics, he plays with a pick. But usually not. So you would want either no pick, or you would want to play with a pick with a roundness to it, kind of like that. That would give you that thumpy. Lindsay's very thumpy sounding. In reality, he's sliding his fingers over. He's actually hitting the strings. And his fingernail, and he's kind of going like that. So it doesn't have a sharp attack. There's no point to that sound at all. It's what you would call a slow release. When you play with a pointy pick, like the Screamer, that's a very fast point of release. It's a multi-second, but it's a different release than that is going to be, okay? And so that, yeah. Now a Metallica sound, rather, you would want something like the Screamer. This is our number one seller, and I think a lot of the people that buy it are metal players. Or the medium pointed, which is the same point as this, but the bevel. If you look at that bevel, it starts way back on the pick, and it goes way out like this. Where a medium pointed, it's a more of a round bevel like this. It's more shaped like that.
Yeah.
So it's got that slow point of release. A lot of metal players really like that.
Right on.
And then I have a dagger shaped pick that I don't even know how some people play. It's called a switchblade, and a lot of metal players like this.
Right on.
The Screamer, though, the funny thing about that is I had to make it at one point, somebody probably requested it, I had to make an acoustic guitar pick. Well, I'm not an acoustic player, but I did know that an acoustic guitar sounds the best when you mix it opposite of the hi-hat, because an acoustic guitar has the same attack, if you think about it, that a hi-hat does. And like when you listen to the Eagles, they would mix the acoustic guitar opposite of the hi-hat. It was in the same realm. So I knew that my acoustic pick was going to have that attack that a drumstick hitting a hi-hat would have to have. So that's where I came, and something told me again, that's why that bevel, this is the only pick that has that bevel. It's a very hard bevel to make, let me tell you. It was, I hated it when people would order 40 or 50 of them from me. It would take me all day just to do that order because I had to do that bevel.
That's the Screamer?
That's the Screamer.
That's the best-selling pick
That's our number one selling pick right now. Wow. And it was originally designed as our acoustic, and then electric players got it. We were still in California, and I remember where my wife was sitting. She was sitting at her computer, and I got another phone call. Man, this pick just screams, dude. An electric player got a hold of it. Man, this pick just screams, dude. They kept saying that over and over. So I remember walking in the house, out of the garage. I was making picks, got off the phone, and I said, that acoustic pick? Yeah. I said, add it on the website, call it the Screamer, and now we're going to sell it two different ways, the acoustic and the Screamer. And immediately it was number one. And it has been number one.
Consistently. Through the years.
Yeah, I probably sell 8,000 of those a year.
Wowza.
That's my guess. I bet you I sell 8,000, maybe 10,000 of that pick a year.
Jeez, oh Pete.
That's a lot of
picks.
just for I mean, if I was Jimmy Dunlop, it's not. He sells 8,000 picks in a week.
Yeah, of course.
But for a little handmade.
So are they still made by hand? I was going to ask if your process has changed much
It
from
has
1980.
changed a lot. They're still, I should say, they're still trimmed by hand, meaning, okay, I'll answer that question like this. When a pick sells over 1,500 picks a month, that's kind of a lot more than we can handle because we grind these things by hand. We cut them out with a laser originally. They get cut out and the logo gets put on them. Then we hand grind them on a buffer, and then we flame buff them. I mean, on a buffer, on a grinder, and then we buff them. Now, that's a lot of manpower, and a good employee can probably pop out 500 picks, maybe 300 to 500 picks a day. But this one right here was such a butt kicker making with that bevel. And plus, I wanted the bevel perfect because it's my number one selling pick. So a pick that sells over that, we then have a mold made. We have it put in a mold. But there's a lot of logistics and studying going because the mold that makes that pick is $10,000.
Ouch.
I have to sell a lot of picks to get that money back. Mm-hmm. So not just any pick just doesn't go in a mold, of course. And every year we put about 3 picks in a mold per year. And the chicken picker is the latest that went into a mold.
You sell enough of those to justify the mold.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And we justify the mold also by we would have to take a lot of time away from other things just to keep these in stock. Mm-hmm. And so but we still have to hand trim them when they come out of the mold, and that's
there's still a lot of
there's still some handmade work. Mm-hmm. When they come out, a lot of people think, it's just a machine spitting the things out like popcorn, but it's not. I wish it was. I wish I could pay $10,000 that it was.
How many employees do you have?
I don't know. Are Nancy and I counted as employees? Really,
Sure.
We are, right? Okay. Audrey, my daughter, Nancy, me. Krista is the one that follows up for our stores. Brenner, of which you guys know, makes picks. Jake. And then I have another guy that helps me online. I hope I'm not forgetting somebody.
Do you have a
So
set?
probably 7, yeah.
Is there a sales guy that goes all over, or that's you, isn't it?
Well, I have
and there couldn't be a better salesperson for the VPIC.
I have a lady that does sales for me on the phone. She doesn't go out and get new stores, but she calls the stores every 2 to 3 months. And
Yeah.
how's your picks doing? And they really like her. Now, I take care of you guys. I like to take care of all the people around Nashville just because I know everybody.
Absolutely. That's one of the selling points because I'm sure you guys do too. Like, hey, these are made right here.
Right here.
And we know Vinnie. And yeah, that's a big selling point for
When
us.
I first met Billy, he was over at another store, a huge store here in town, and he goes, "Wow!" Then they told him about VPICs, and he'd heard of them, and so he bought a bunch of them when he was there. And then they go, "Well, why don't you go over and see Vinny?" He goes, "VPICs are from Nashville." He didn't know. They go, "Yeah." Next thing I know, I get a phone call that he's on his way, and I look out the front door, and at that time I just moved to that ranch, and there's a cattle gate. You know what a cattle gate is?
absolutely, yeah.
You buy them out of Tractor Supply.
Yeah.
There's at a cattle gate right in front of my shop, and here's Billy Gibbons getting out of this little minivan, reaching over my cattle gate, trying to get.
That's funny.
I go, "Audrey, that's Billy Gibbons. Check it out." And
Wow.
Here he comes through my cattle gate.
That's cool, man.
That's awesome.
What's his pick? What picks does he like?
Billy, same thing as you, the tradition
Traditional
light,
light.
but I leave his unbuffed, real scratchy.
Yeah, I can
I
see that.
I use the most coarse grinder that we have for Billy's picks, and sometimes I'll even drag them across a real coarse piece of sandpaper. I mean the kind that's it's almost like cement. It's so coarse.
Like 80 grit or
oh
something.
yeah, just really rough. And Billy likes that.
He does, yeah. Boy,
He
if
likes-
anybody likes it, he does.
He likes that. He gave me one of his pesos.
Oh, really?
I made him take it out of his wallet and give it to me.
Oh, that's really cool, man. What's the thinnest pick you make?
It's
'Cause
not
it-
here, but
okay.
it's called the Tradition Ultralight and the large pointed ultralight. I don't know if you guys got them.
I don't think we have any in this.
I'm
Maybe we might have one.
I'm not crazy about thin picks, so I guess
Yeah, that's the
I
reason
don't
I asked
push
the
'em.
question because
I got 'em.
generally these picks are.
yeah,
You know, they're not-
I've got
they're
them.
heavy.
I've got picks with flex. They're a little bit different material.
Mm-hmm.
These are my own special. Some of these picks are my own special form of acrylic that I like to have made, which is why they have this gripping factor to them. You know,
Mm-hmm.
not all acrylic does that, and that's a heavy pick right there.
Absolutely.
And this chicken picker's not, but
That's so cool.
there's 8 different grades of cast acrylic. See that thing sticking to me? That's because it clings your fingers when it gets warmed up. You know the feel. It's just weird how it does it. And there's 8 different grades of cast acrylic. 2 of them do that. Not all of them do that. So, what was the question?
I was asking what the thinnest pick was.
Oh, the thinnest pick.
ultralight.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to get to that. It's a different form. It's a different grade of material because this will not flex at all. This will snap on you in a second. So I do add another ingredient on those, and those are called the ultralight series.
Gotcha.
And they're 0.8 millimeter.
Okay.
And they sound really good. The only time I'll play them normally, for me personally, is on acoustic guitar. Again, when I want it to sound like that hi-hat and get that, that crisp
Sure.
attack to that hi-hat. Same thing.
What's the oddest pick you've had to make?
Well-
has somebody sent you a request for like
Yeah, and I don't really do
a giant VP?
I don't really do requests anymore
Right.
because, well, they want me to do it, and I spend about an hour researching and figuring it out, and then they'll say, "Yeah, okay, I want 2 of them." Well, I can't do that. Our minimum run is 30 picks to go to the shop. I mean, if I'm going to take a guy off of his project that he's working on, and I'm going to say, "Here, you need to do this," I can't do that for 2 picks.
I gotcha. Yeah.
I lose money.
Right.
And unfortunately, when you run a business, it's a money thing.
Absolutely.
Those people
I get
want
it.
paychecks, and so yeah, our minimum run is 30 to go through. But one thing that people have requested is if you can imagine this pick right here, if it was really pointy, and they want 2 points and 1 round, okay? Now, and I've absolutely, even if they order 30 of them, I won't do it because it never turns out like they think it's going to turn out. It's ugly, first of all.
Sure.
It I don't know. It looks just real. Just imagine that pick right there with another point on it, and then this is round. And they always end up sending them back to me saying, "Man, I'm not happy with that." So I get that request about every 3 months, and I say, "Believe me, brother,
You don't want
you think you want it, but you don't." That's the weirdest. I guess that's the weirdest request. We get some weird ones sometimes.
Do you get? Are you constantly looking at different materials, or like you just stick on that one?
No, absolutely not. I fell in love with this material in 1980,
And that's
and I have. It's a little problematic, and I think that one reason that pick makers never used it is because it's inconsistent. And when you buy a 4x6 sheet of it, some of that stuff it's very expensive, and some of that stuff you throw away because there's 20% difference in variance on thickness from 1 foot away. The stuff is poured on glass, and it's not poured in a mold. It's poured on glass, and it might have a top on it where they squash it down, but it's just not the same thickness. So some of it gets thrown away, but the way it grips to your fingers and the way this sounds, to me, is worth all the problems that it
dealing with it. It comes up. Yeah, I got you.
and if you think about it, here in Nashville, you know Brent Mason, all those guys, they all got fake fingernails. You know that.
Sure, absolutely.
Guess what they're made out of?
That stuff.
Cast acrylic.
That's awesome.
The exact same stuff.
Wow.
Do you guys? Do you sell overseas?
Yeah, we do. We do. Matter of fact, I'm getting ready. We're just now putting a huge order together for Germany. It's going to go out on Monday, but we sell a gross amount to Germany, Japan, and the UK.
Yeah.
And they kind of and other countries too, but those are my biggest ones. And then we're just now breaking into China, and I'm in the middle of getting a Chinese trademark. China's trying to change their ways, They're
trying to.
They're trying.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I'm sure they're getting tired of the people not wanting to do business with them, as I haven't for many years, just because they're going to get ripped off. They're just so known for this rip-off thing, and
there's no copyright laws or
there's not. They don't have it. And to them, it's not wrong.
Yeah, they don't.
It's just a way of life to them.
Yes.
A lot of countries are that way. But to become part of the fair trade in the world and the free trade of the world, and to really get people, they're doing things like you have to have a trademark now. If you're a good-sized company, and I guess they're considering me a good-sized company because they're making me do that, I have to get a trademark, and then they can protect me. They can't protect me if I don't have anything trademarked. So the trademark went through, I found out, and it hasn't been released to me. It won't be released to me for, I think, like another 6 weeks or something. So,
are you going to go over there?
No. I hear I'll be a real tall person if I do, though, I've been told.
Or you better get a surgical mask.
For right now.
Right now.
No.
No, you would be taller.
I don't travel very well.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess you wouldn't need to.
Well, no, I don't plan to, because one of the guys that I deal with actually lives in the Midwest.
Yeah.
His name is Kale.
Just
like the plant.
Yeah. Okay.
And he lives in the Midwest, and so if I have to deal with anybody face to face, I deal with Kale.
Sure.
And I don't have any desire to go out of the United States.
Yeah.
None whatsoever.
Was it going back to 1980 from like an entrepreneurial angle? Was it years before this took off as a career? Was that a difficult process?
Oh yeah. I made them, and I gave a bunch of them to friends.
That was the R&D.
Was there anything like it at that time?
No, absolutely not.
So you
Nothing.
were the first and completely
I was
one of a
really
kind.
there was another pick that was called the Stone pick. And it looked a lot like this Farley here. It's about that thick. And the guy had an ad in Guitar Player magazine, and it used to say, it was a picture of him, and he said, "I guarantee I can play faster than you with this pick." That's what he said. And my buddy Jesse Hampton, he's a buddy of mine. He's a big hero of mine. He played those, so they were looking back, they were a bit of an inspiration. Those Stone pick was, but really, the only other people that made picks were Fender. Gibson made picks a lot back in those days. Dario and people like that. But boutique pick makers, no. He was the only boutique pick that I knew of. And even when I started making them again in 2004, there was no Red Bear and all those guys. None of those people were around. Blue Chip wasn't around. I was pretty much the first, because Stone Picks had closed down. And as far as I know, I was making them. I started making them, and again, I was in this real popular band, and I was making these picks, and I give them to all my buddies and people that show up. I give them to them, and then I just go to work and make a whole bunch of them the next day or the next week, and then Eddie Van Halen came out, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not an Eddie Van Halen fan. I know he made his mark, and I admire Eddie. I don't know Eddie, but I hear he's a great guy. He made his mark, but I couldn't stand listening to that. To me, it sounded like a turkey gobbling. Think about it, and it made no sense.
Never heard it quite explained that way, but I guess I can see that.
I couldn't stand it, and I was working in the studio. I was working in studios at the time. I was a producer in one of the studios, and people kept asking me to do that stuff, and I didn't want to do it, and I didn't like to do it. I would do it occasionally when I had to do it, but it just got to where it just irked me. And then of course, then Steve Vai came out doing it. He started doing the same stuff, and guitar playing changed its direction greatly in the 80s. I liked guitar players like Don Felder from the Eagles and
Joe Walsh?
and Brian May and Joe Walsh. They weren't playing like they were getting paid by the note. Mm-hmm. And I just couldn't stand what guitar was doing. And so there was this guy that showed up on an Eagles record. His name was David Sanborn, and he played saxophone on one of the songs called Sad Cafe. And I listened to that, and I said, that's what I want to do. So I sold off all my guitars. I didn't have a lot of them back then, but I had some nice ones. And I sold them off for, you couldn't give a Les Paul back in those days. I think I sold that black custom Les Paul for $300.
Wow.
Matter of fact, I know I did.
Jeez.
God.
Yeah, it's stupid, isn't it? When I stand up, you can kick me. And I bought saxophones.
So you quit playing guitar.
Completely quit playing guitar. I kept one guitar, and I remember it was a real junky Stratocaster with a 3-bolt neck on it. Remember the old 78?
Absolutely.
With a 3-bolt neck. You could literally move the neck like that when you're playing it. It was
absolutely.
terrible guitar. For some reason, I kept that one instead of the black Les Paul.
And you went all in on the sax.
All in the sax, and I played sax for about 4 or 5 years. That's all I did. And I became successful at it. I mean, we did shows with people like Charlie Daniels and Hank Williams Jr. and stuff.
Sure.
We were up there with the big boys. We were, the band playing with their band, that kind of thing. And so I was doing okay. I was hooting on the sax, and then believe it or not, doing mostly country music.
Yeah.
Because country was real popular in the 90s. It was more popular than it is now.
Well, I was going to say
the
sax. The 80s was the decade of the sax, right?
It was for rock music,
yeah. For sure.
But in the 90s, a lot of country bands were Merle Haggard and they were using
sax,
horn sections and stuff. So
absolutely.
That's what I was pretty much doing. I was playing alto sax and horn section. And anyway, this one band called me up and he goes, "Hey, I need you to come and do a job for me tonight." And I don't know why I did this. I go, well, what do you want me to play? And he goes, well, bring your sax. And I said, well, I'm really a better guitar player than I am a sax player. I think I started listening to those guitar parts, and they were playing like Don Felder used to play in the middle of the 70s. They weren't doing this nonsense. They were playing melodies.
Sure.
And I said, well, I'm a better guitar player than I am a sax player. And he goes, I never forget, his name was Barry Day. He goes, well, that's good because you suck at the sax.
Wow.
That's what he said to me. You suck at the sax. So I took my guitar that night, and then they asked me to start playing with them. But it's kind of funny because I didn't have these picks with me. I think all those picks were in those guitars that I sold.
So you quit making picks when you quit playing guitar?
Yeah. And I completely forgot about them. I mean, it was like it was erased from my memory, these picks that I made. So now I'm playing guitar again, right? And again, I'm unhappy with the picks that I'm finding when I go into the music stores. What is this junk? And I do.
What was the pick scene like at this point? What year is this? Like 95 or something?
Yeah,
Mid-90s?
And then I started playing Jimmy Dunlop's picks again. I started playing those purple ones, the big stubbies. They're called the Big Stubby, and they're 3.0. I don't know why I didn't even think about it. It didn't even cross my mind about these picks that I used to make. And so I started doing the seashells and the wood again, and I even started grinding down full silver quarters, the silver ones, and I still have them, and silver 50-cent pieces. I can show them to you. And I just beat the snot out of the front of a Paul Reed Smith one time with a metal coin pick, and then one day, my daughter and I were cleaning out this closet because we were remodeling the house.
This is in California still.
California still, and I pulled out this old gig bag. I pulled it out, and it was a Scuba Pro because I used to be a scuba diver. And I kept a bunch of junk in there. And I was pulling out like old humbucker pickups and old tuners, and I think there was like a original Ibanez tube screamer in there that the battery was left in, and it was just all rotted from the inside out. And in the bottom of that thing, I reached in, and there was one of those old picks that I made.
It was the pick of destiny.
I was about to say that.
Just like that. I remember looking at it like this, and it was real scratchy. It was about this size and shape, and I said, Audrey's my daughter. I go, Audrey, Dad made this back in like 1982. This thing's been in here since 1982. And then I started remembering making those things. And I went down to the store, and I got the closest thing I could get again, and it was 2.75, still that thickness. That's, they made it thinner too. I think they made it for they make it for signs and putting over picture frames and stuff like that. And I started making them, and now this time we had the internet because it was like 2004. We had the internet, and I started sending them to friends on the internet.
And then you could do all kinds of research, and you could find vendors.
Yeah, but I don't read very well. I can read, but I don't. Let's put it this way: I don't like reading.
I got you.
And so I didn't do research. I just was on there chit-chatting with my friends and the different the gear page, as a matter of fact.
Okay, yeah, that would make sense.
And we used to have this get-together over in San Francisco. It's called the Boys Club. We met in this airplane hangar, and I made about 50 of them, and I took them to my buddies. We met about every 3 months. I took my buddies, I put them on the table. I said, everybody gets 3. So they did. They all took 3 of them. And one guy went onto the gear page, and he did this thing. Those stupid V-picks, he called it. That's what he called the article, those stupid V-picks. No. That must have been before they had the name.
Did he mistakenly name the V-picks?
No, he didn't name the V-Pix. John Dean did. Okay, so wow, see, I've forgotten a lot of things. They already had the name at that point. So, but anyway, I went over to my buddy. Here's a story I got to tell you before that story. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm with you, man.
We got an hour, right?
Yeah, man. You're good. You're good.
So here's the deal. I went over to John Dean's house because he was helping me grind down those coins. We were just farting around in his.
Sure.
And I go, check this out, John. He goes, wow, where'd you get this? I said, I made it in 1980. You should start making these. I go, I know, I made dozens of them already. He goes, what are you going to name them? And I said, I don't know, maybe Plexi Picks? That's what because they were plexiglass, right? And he goes, John was brilliant. John could come up with, John was one of those people that he could say a line and make you crack up in a second.
Yeah, he was good to the
He
punch.
goes, how about V-Picks? And I thought that he called them that because they were shaped like a V. I didn't know he called them that because Vinnie. It was like 3 months or maybe 6 months before I caught onto that. So that's where they got the name V-Pix. And then Johnny and I went over to the Bay Area to that meeting. That's what it was. And then we laid them out. And they didn't have logos on them or nothing because I didn't know how to do all that. And they laid them on a table. And then that's when the guy wrote the article, those stupid V-Picks. And what his whole point was, now he can't play with anything else because of these stupid picks that Vinnie gave me. Now he owns me. That was basically his. And
I know what he's saying. I mean, that happened to me.
Yeah, and I think there was only like 30,000 members on the gear page at that time. There's like 300 or 500,000 members now, or maybe 3 million. But it was a very small website then, and it is just we took a picture of it. But my daughter had a disease, and we couldn't figure out what the disease was. And I was working 12 hours a day. I didn't have enough money to pay for her hospital bill. This is kind of a sad part of the story, but this is true, and I like to tell this part of the story. And they couldn't figure out what was wrong with her, and it was months. And does she have cancer? Does she have leukemia? Does she have this? Does she have that? And I remember coming home from the hospital. They didn't know what was wrong with her. And I remember sitting at the stoplight, and it was red. And I remember thinking to myself, sometimes you talk to God. We just do. I think even people that don't believe in him do sometimes. And I remember saying, God, they can't figure out what's wrong with Audrey. And I don't know how I'm going to pay all these doctor bills. I have no idea how I'm going to pay these doctor bills. I really need your help. That's what I said. And I remember the light turned green, and I made the left-hand turn going up Tully to my house. 2 days later, this guy that I had given pics to calls me up, and he goes, hey, dude, you need to quit giving those pics away. You need to start selling them. And here's where you're going to sell them. Because my wife kept telling me, you're out in the garage all the time making those pics, and you're just sending them all over the world, giving them away. What's the deal? You need to start selling those. I said, nobody's going to buy those things. Who's going to buy a $5 pic? And so he goes, well, and here's where you're going to sell them. And he pointed me at the gear page. So we took a picture like this, just like that, in front of Audrey's piano. And Nancy made this little website that cost us $9.95 a month, which was a lot of money to me because everything was being trained.
Sure.
And one guy said, how much you going to, well, the guy that was helping me, Mike Petras, she's a dear friend of mine. He said, how much you going to sell them for? And I said, gee, I don't know. And he goes, well, how long does it take you to make them? And I said, it takes me about 20 minutes. He says, so you can make 3 an hour. I said, yeah, that's about right. By the time I buff them and clean them, I can make 3 an hour. And he said, okay, when you do a part-time job, you should always make $15 an hour because you've already done your job, you paid your taxes, and if you're going to do something on part-time, you need to make $15 an hour.
Sure.
So you need to sell those things for $5 a piece. I said, there's no way. Picks sell for 35 cents a piece. They don't sell for $5. And he says, well, then how about this? How about you sell 3 for $12 and charge $3 shipping? I go, if you say so, Mike, whatever. I didn't believe anybody. So we did that website. Nancy pushed return. And I remember the day that the hospital bills were paid off.
Wow, that's a great story.
I remember the day when we paid off the hospital bills.
Was it immediate? Like the
Yes.
next day, you had orders.
That hour I had orders.
Wow,
That's awesome.
that is amazing.
That hour I had orders, and so it just then I figured, okay, well, thanks God, you paid off our hospital bills, and I just figured it was over,
Yeah,
but it just never stopped.
yeah.
And then the next thing I know, my wife comes up to me and she said, "You need to quit your job. It's getting in the way of our business."
Yeah.
What? I started working while I was like 14 years old.
Sure.
And because, we were not a rich family or
Sure.
even middle class. We were up, lower class.
Yeah.
And so we never had any money. So I worked all my life. And for me to quit a job that was paying my bills and supplying me with health insurance and stuff, boy, I still have nightmares. Not nightmares, but
You can
dreams.
still feel the anxiety of that.
Yes, I can, and I still have dreams about that. I'm still working and thinking about whether I'm going to quit that job. That's a
That's a fork
sense
in
of
the road,
security
man.
for
Yeah,
us,
yeah.
And and that's kind of
That's cool.
where we
man.
are now. And
When did you move to Nashville?
we moved to
I've asked you
Nashville
this before.
in 2011,
Yeah.
and we just became. We raised our kids in California, but California started sliding downhill. And we just became disillusioned. And my wife looked at me one day, and she said, "I want an adventure." I go, "Okay, what do you want?" She goes, "I want to move." I said, "Okay, do you want to move?" Because we loved Hawaii and we loved Nashville. I said, "You want to move to Hawaii or Nashville?" Just go find me a place to live. So she says, "I want to move to Nashville." I said, "Okay, so go find me a place to live." So I put her on a plane, and she come out here and found us a ranch, and found it very nice. You haven't been out to the place yet, but you should be.
Okay.
And she found us a really nice place to live, and we moved here right after the flood. So I knew that the house didn't flood. The utility barn way down in the horse area did. It was like a foot and a half of water in it. But my VPIC shop and our house did not flood.
That's cool.
I knew that, so that's why. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bought the place. And we just never looked back. I didn't look in the rearview mirror when I drove out of California. I literally did not look in the rearview mirror.
That's great.
Drove right down through Southern California and right through Barstow and Arizona, and out we came with our 3 Great Danes in our cars and big old Penske truck. And
That's awesome, man. Well, I'm glad you did that.
yeah, and
That's a fantastic. That's an American dream story right there. There's not
It
too
is,
many
it
of too many of those left.
It is, and I have to tell you about the Carlos thing too. I grew up playing Carlos Santana. One of the first.
And this is in the Bay Area.
Yeah, I lived not far from Carlos.
Yeah.
Carlos lives in a place called Marin County, and
Sure.
I lived in a place called Modesto, which is about an hour and a half from Marin County. And so Carlos played high schools and everything around where I was. And then Carlos came out with the Abraxas album.
Sure.
And I learned a lot. I was a giant John Fogerty and Alvin Lee fan up to that point. And then once my brother-in-law gave me a Abraxas album, then, of course, I became a big Carlos fan. So I always had this dream of, wow, now that I'm making picks, I wonder if Carlos would ever play. So this guy named David Workman called me up one day, ordered picks from me. He says, "I want to make this order." And he gave me this order, and he said, "And if you want, I have a friend named Carlos Santana, and if you want him to try out your picks, throw some in there for him." Well, that kind of pissed me off because you're in business. You know how people kind of jerk you around sometimes.
Sure.
And I thought, this guy's just, yeah. I go, yeah, okay, right. He goes, no, I know. You think I'm just trying to get free picks from you. This is what he said to me. He goes, but I'm telling you, Carlos is a buddy of mine, and if you want him to try your picks, okay, Dave, you're on. And it was kind of that thing. I was kind of annoyed with the guy. We're dear friends now, by the way. But so I did. I threw in some extra picks for Carlos. 2 weeks later, my daughter, Audrey, again.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Santana Management. Oh, cool, she says. So then she calls me up at work. Dad, you got to call this number. It's Carlos's bodyguard, Carlos Santana, Dad.
Did
Carlos
she know who it was?
Yeah, because I played a lot of his music. So she knew who Carlos was. Matter of fact, when she was really little, one time there was this game, stare at this thing and then look at the wall and you see a picture of Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, she always thought that was Carlos Santana.
Wow.
you know, you've seen the
Yeah,
thing.
I know
Stare
what
at
you're
that
talking-
look. And
Yeah.
She always thought it was Carlos. Anyway, so I called the number, and sure enough, there it was. It was Chad, and he was standing next to Carlos, and Carlos made this giant order with me, and
The rest is history.
the rest is history.
That's awesome, man.
And he's like, especially back then, and still now. I mean, there's not very many guitar players that you could say to anybody and they know who they are. There's Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
Everybody. I mean, even my mom knew who Eric Clapton
Sure.
was. There's Carlos. There's Billy Gibbons. Not many.
Not many. Yeah.
He's like Pharaoh. At the
he's a big
time,
one.
Carlos was Pharaoh.
Sure.
You know, and so that really, once I put that on the website, Carlos is playing our picks, and then a picture of Carlos put me in a chokehold, and had a bunch of pictures like that of Carlos and me, and that really, I think that helped our sales quite a bit.
I'm sure. Was he like the first really big artist you had?
First big star, yeah, Carlos, and then I don't remember when Walter Becker, and I remember when Ed King started playing, because Ed was a big inspiration of mine. He wouldn't play my picks. I kept calling him. I don't even know how I got his phone number, but I kept contacting him. He played the solo on Sweet Home Alabama.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
he played that with a seashell. There's more noise on that solo than there is. There's more pick noise on that
Than
solo
string noise.
than there are. Than there is notes.
Yeah.
If you really listen to that, he says that was the worst Strat he's ever owned in his life. He hated that guitar. He was glad to give it to the Hard Rock Cafe. And he wouldn't play my picks. And then I moved out here, and then I talked to him once in a while. Man, why don't you leave me alone, dude? And then one day, just out of the clear blue sky, he called me up. He goes, "Okay, you got me." I go, "What did I do?" He said, "This pick that's got 1980 on it, can you make it red?" I said, "Yeah, I'll do that for you." He goes, "This is the one." I said, "Ed, it's so funny you picked that out, because that's the one I made in 1980 to sound like you." He goes, "You made this pick to sound like me." I go,
Full circle.
It's exactly what I did.
That's amazing.
It is. It's a cool story, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Eddie's gone now,
He's passed away.
Eddie passed away,
When?
yeah. About a year and a half ago.
I just saw something about a guitar of his being auctioned.
Yeah, the Red Eye, the Les Paul. Yeah, Eddie had to have his heart replaced because he got that virus that killed his heart, and so he had to have his heart replaced, and then he succumbed to cancer after that. He smoked a lot, when he was young. Every picture you see of Leonard Skinner, he had a cigarette in his mouth or in his hand or in the head of his guitar. So he died of lung cancer. Yeah.
Ouch.
Only to come to that.
That sucks, man.
Something's going to get all of us, sooner or later.
Sooner or later.
None of us are getting out of this boat alive. You know that.
That's
Cheers,
true.
man. Absolutely.
That's true. Well, Vinny, man, I'm glad you're a friend of the store and a friend of mine, and everybody's here. And I love your product, and I'm so proud that we carry it here. And man, I want to thank you for doing this, man.
Yeah. Are we done?
Yeah, we're an hour, man. We're over an hour.
My gosh, I talked for an hour.
Yeah.
I hope you were able to answer the questions.
No, I mean, I wanted to get the story, man. So I think we got it. You guys,
Absolutely.
It's
you guys got anything to add?
I think it's cool that we're bringing in some of the premium picks. I didn't know that there was anything above what we
tiers.
offered. Yeah, I didn't know there were tiers.
I wish that you didn't. I wish that I would have told you guys. Larry and those guys knew from from before.
Yeah.
I'll bring you down. I'll bring you down my whole line of premiums if you want. You can just.
I
you
think
can
we
just take
could move
those
them,
and-
don't you?
Yeah.
Hank?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, definitely.
So a lot of the stores do here in town.
Sure.
Some of them don't want to deal with a $10 pick sitting there waiting to be taken. But then again, like I say, if you're missing a SKU, just tell me you're missing a SKU and I'll replace it. It's worth it to me to get it into the customer's hands.
It feels to the picks as far as the people that use them. It almost veers more towards not necessarily professional, but almost more of a skillful professional, for lack of a better word. It's not really perusers or hobbyists
Yes.
that are interested. It's not really the thieving type, I guess, that are interested in those. It's more the
People that want more out of their instrument.
Yeah, it's
exactly.
pro.
Whether
People
they're,
that know
whether
what's
they're
up.
pro
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah.
Now I have a lot. And I don't know about who my customer base is because I only see their names, so I don't really know. But I suspect a large part of my customers are guys that play okay. I mean, they might be able to play a C, an F, and a G, and some of them go out and gig, but a lot of them don't. They just like to sit around and they like to have the best of the best of the best, and these are considered that. These, Blue Chip, and Red Bear. Those are the three real biggies. And I'm really proud to be, in that same
Absolutely, man.
same list of names.
Definitely.
Blue Chip, he's a friend of mine.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you have a relationship with those guys?
Absolutely. The guy from Red Bear, he lives in Nevada. We've spoken, a bit on the phone. The guy from Blue Chip, did I say Blue Chip? I meant Red Bear. The guy from Blue Chip, I see him at shows and stuff. We're very friendly competition. Competition nonetheless.
Absolutely.
And I tell him that I make better picks than him.
What, does he just laugh?
Yeah, he just laughs. He doesn't even play, He owns a machine shop, and they got this material in, and one of his employees said, "Hey, that would make a great guitar pick." I guess it's really expensive stuff, really expensive material. So he'll tell you he doesn't even play, but I'll tell you, I wish that I had the foot in the bluegrass field that he does.
Oh man.
Blue
Boy,
Chip
those people love that
It's
guy.
uncompromised,
and
man.
and the bluegrass contingent, they're very loyal to.
They love that guy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And matter of fact, Spigma's going on this weekend.
I'll be there.
Yeah, and he'll be there, and he could be selling a bajunior out of those things. But if you'll notice now, when you go to those, because I've done Spigma before and stuff, they'll open up their little tray and there'll be Blue Chips, but there'll also be a V pick in there.
Right on.
'Cause they'll tell me, well, I mostly play Blue Chips, but I play yours too.
Absolutely.
Vince Gill's same way.
For the
He
most,
likes Blue Chip.
for the most part, like just all my years of being in this business, like it is friendly competition. All the companies, they like each other.
Most
Most of them do.
not everybody, but most.
I know there's a
There's still some rip-offs, but
Yeah,
and
we-
pedal companies get it, guitar companies get it.
Yeah.
It happens,
absolutely.
But generally speaking, yeah, we're all friends. It's like I'm really good friends with Dragonheart's picks.
Yeah.
Have you seen his picks?
I haven't seen them.
They're a
Or Red Bear. We don't have Red Bear. Do we?
I've never heard of Red Bear.
Red Bear, Dragonheart. I don't even know if Red Bear wholesales. He may or may not. But Dragonheart, he's got this. It's a different shape pick, and it's made out of some material that on his website. He's a sweetheart of a guy. Just love him. He's a veteran, served our country and everything. He's a great guy, and he calls me his hero. Well, I'm going to call him my hero. I'm going to call him my hero. But on the video on his website, he throws these things in a frying pan. Yeah, and he's heating them up in a frying pan, flipping them over, and they don't melt.
Interesting.
I don't know what they're made out of, but I know it's a plastic, but I don't. Isn't that weird?
Yeah,
That
it's
is
really
very
weird,
strange.
absolutely.
And but so I'm good friends with a lot of these guys.
Sure.
I got a guy right now.
Well, we know there's ones you're not friends with.
Well, yeah, but we don't want to talk about that. we don't bring that up. The one guy that I've just recently become friends with, matter of fact, he's sending me a guitar here. Just that nice of a guy. He's putting magnets in V-Picks now. He's got a patent.
Magnets?
He's got a patent on it.
What
He
is
actually got
that
a patent
for?
on it. He drills a hole in. It. It's a flat magnet, flat round magnet, and he puts a magnet in. I guess so you can stick it to your pickup, or you can stick it to a mic stand or something. I don't know. I got one hanging on my refrigerator.
Interesting. Well, it would be a refrigerator.
I would love to mess
It'd be a refrigerator magnet for sure.
That would definitely work.
But he's doing it with the Screamer, the Dimension Junior, and the Mummy. You guys know the Mummy. He's doing the Mummy.
That was your pick for a long time, wasn't it?
I do like the Mummy.
I like the Mummy a lot.
So he's putting magnets in them.
Putting magnets in them. So
I thought there was some playing application for that, but you're probably right. It's probably just to stick. I don't know what the.
And maybe it has to do. Some people believe in magnets with your arthritis and all that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Maybe it's that. He hasn't told me, as much as we've talked, he hasn't told me what the magnets do exactly. Huh. But they're strong magnets, and I don't know, man. I'd be afraid to go over to one of the pickups.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's interesting.
Are pickup covers magnetic? I mean,
the covers. I don't think. I mean, yeah. I mean, will the magnet stick to them? Yeah, absolutely,
okay.
Absolutely.
I'd be wondering about that. Anyway, that's just getting the ball rolling, and I'm getting ready to make a whole bunch of picks for him to do that. Wow. And it's just another friendly little. Yeah, Jimmy Dunlop's coming over to my house.
I was going to ask you, Jimmy's in town? Mm-hmm. That's really cool.
Jimmy's in town, and they wrote me, and Jimmy Dunlop is coming to V-Picks Ranch tomorrow.
That is very cool.
I am very honored.
You should be.
I am I've only met Jimmy one time. He's 10 feet tall. Uh-huh. He's giant tall. Uh-huh. And he came up to me at NAMM one time, and he shook my hand. He goes, "Hi, I'm Jimmy Dunlop." And I went, "No, you're not." I didn't believe him. I just thought it was somebody messing with. People mess with me all the time. I go, "No, you're not." He goes, "Yes, I am." Mm-hmm. And I go, "No." I just didn't believe him. And he goes, "Vinnie, you sent me an email, and it said this, 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 and this. Now, who else is going to know that but me and you?" And I went, "You're Jimmy Dunlop."
Wow.
You are Jimmy Dunlop. So he's going to come over tomorrow.
That's really
I'm really
cool.
honored to have Jimmy Dunlop. He's the pick man of the world.
Absolutely.
Again, I make better picks than he does.
Sure.
And I'll tell him that tomorrow. But he's the guy.
He's the guy.
I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than that.
That's the big guy. All right, man. Well, this was a lot of fun.
It's a blast.
Thanks, Vinny, man. You're the best,
Absolutely.
dude. I always love talking to you, man. It's
for you guys, and I'll be bringing more down.
Such a cool thing that we get to see you all the time and talk to you. And you've given me so many picks. It's not even
if you
fun.
ever want to do this again, I'll let you talk next time.
No, man, but it was great.
We usually need to do a part 2 with certain guests.
Yeah, there's certain guests
definitely.
that we're going to do part 2s, like Jason, and there's a couple other people. But yeah, man, we'd love to have you back.
Yeah.
Anytime, man.
I love talking about my picks and telling the story, and half of my stuff you can't believe, but
I know which two.
You can believe.
Go first, Will.
I think you.
I'm going to take that one.
You take whatever you want. I'll bring you guys some more. Like I say, now that I didn't even think about bringing you guys some premium picks.
Oh
before.
no, this was the one.
They're really something though. They're special, aren't they?
Dude,
Premium picks are special. Bro.
I feel like it's a
really
step up. Actually,
you think that's your main squeeze right there, huh?
I think it might be.
If you'll notice, it's buffed on one side and not buffed on the other.
Yeah. I don't know. I have a whole.
Wait a minute. No, that's the 3.0. This is the one I'm talking about. This orange one. That's the one that's buffed on one side and not on the other.
That's a good one too.
Hank, you got anything you need to say? Plugs? There's a writers' round February 6th here at World Music, Nashville, right?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Any other gigs coming up?
That's like the closest one we have.
Okay.
Community Arts of Bellevue also this weekend. They're doing a writers round
Okay.
Saturday and Sunday.
You're playing at Acme this Friday?
Acme, 5 to 7 this Friday. Yep.
Dex?
That's the very last one.
How's that stage doing? Didn't that stage collapse or something?
I don't know.
Isn't that the place where the roof, there was too much water on the roof and caused the stage to crack and collapse or something? Maybe it was a different venue?
Maybe.
Johnny used to play there all the time.
On the bottom floor, I don't think so. That's where we're playing, but there's multiple floors. So
Oh,
maybe,
there is? Okay, I bet you that's what it was then.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of them, the stage collapsed. Pretty sure
Just
that was
because Will
Acme.
was rocking out so hard.
No.
All right, man.
Way to sell
Thanks,
it.
Vinny. That was good. Excellent.
It was fun.
on.
Very loose.